Great Ziggurat of Ur, Anunnaki's earthly home and ancient spaceport built by Sumerians, according to claims. The ancient buildings of the Sumerians amaze with their grandeur and are not inferior to the Egyptian pyramids. Naturally, numerous theories are proposed about the purpose of these ziggurats. They're massive structures built in ancient Mesopotamia, including ufologists' interests. Interestingly, the Great Ziggurat of Ur, the ancient Sumerian city now in Iraq. Ur is also the origin of where Abraham was born before he came to the Promised Land. Now, is it the most important ancient Mesopotamian structure because it's dedicated to the moon god Nana, who was the patron deity of the city? The construction of the Ziggurat of Ur began under the reign of King Ur-Nammu of the Third Dynasty and was finished by his son King Sulgi. It's one of the three well-preserved structures of the Neo-Sumerian city of Ur, along with the royal mausolea and the palace of Ur-Nammu. Very well preserved. The remains of this ancient step pyramid were discovered by William Kenneth Loftus in 1850, but it was Sir Leonard Woolley who excavated it in the 1920s and 30s. The massive step pyramid measures 210 feet in length and 148 feet in width and over 98 feet in height. The height is speculative, as only the foundations of the Sumerian ziggurat have survived. So how tall was this thing? It could have held a tower. Who knows? Now, clearly, the most important part of the ziggurat at Ur was the Nana temple at its top, but unfortunately it has not survived. Many people of Ur believe that their ziggurat was the place on earth where Nana chose to dwell, or the meeting place of gods and humans. People of ancient Mesopotamia believed that their gods had needs just like any mortal. Therefore, they provided a chamber with a bed in the temple. However, it was occupied by a maiden chosen to be God's companion. There was also a kitchen on the side of stairways, which was most likely used to prepare food for the god. In ancient times, Sumer was considered to be the cradle of civilization, where Mesopotamians worshipped the great number of deities, also known as the Anunnaki, which represented the various forces of the world. It's estimated that the deities in the Sumerian pantheon were numbered in hundreds or even thousands, but there are 7 top-ranking gods. These are the An, Enlil, Enki, Inanna, Utu, Ninhursag, and Nana, the god of the moon and wisdom. World History Encyclopedia writes, he, Nana, was the son of Enlil and Ninlil, and is their firstborn after Enlil seduces Ninlil by the river bank in the myth Enlil and Ninlil. His wife was Ningal, also Nikal, or Great Lady, a fertility goddess, and their children were Utu Shamash, the sun god, and in some stories his twin sister Inanna or Ishtar, goddess of love and sexuality, Erish Kigal, queen of the dead, and Ishkur, also known as Adad, or god of storms. The purpose of the ziggurat and connection with the Tower of Babel. Ziggurat's purpose is to get the temple closer to the heavens and provide access from the ground to it via steps. The Mesopotamians believed that these pyramid temples connected heaven and earth. In fact, the ziggurat of Babylon was known as Ete Menanki, which means house of the foundation of heaven and earth in Sumerian. According to Katakriston WordPress, many scholars and commentators running the spectrum from liberal to conservative believe the Tower of Babel described in Genesis 11, 1-9 was almost certainly a ziggurat. Why? 1. Genesis 11 uses a typical ziggurat terminology. 2. Bitumen mortar and baked clay bricks construction of ziggurats is identical to the biblical description. Genesis 3a. Let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly, Genesis 11:3b, and they used brick for stone and they used tar for mortar. The building method described in Genesis precisely mirrors early Sumerian building practices in the Tigris-Euphrates River Valley, where the first civilizations were, but no later times or biblical places like in Israel during the kingdom period, where such methods had passed into disuse and obscurity centuries later. The third item, Genesis 3, plains of Shinar, is identified philologically as Sumer. The plains of Shinar or Sumer are between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. 4. Sumer also has narratives of the confusion of tongues and the destruction of a great tower. 5. Modern research has clearly demonstrated that the earliest civilizations and ancient languages actually developed in the general area of Mesopotamia, the plain of Shinar or Sumer. Ancient Spaceport. If ziggurats were really a place of gods to dwell on earth, or the meeting place of gods and humans, and if the gods were ancient astronauts who came from outer space, then there must be a place for landing and takeoff for their spacecraft. Considering this theory, in 2016, Iraqi Transport Minister Kazim Finjan made a sensational statement during his business trip to Dakar, and according to him, the Sumerians had their own spaceport and actively traveled, including outside the solar system. Finjar is sure that the first airports and spacecraft platforms were built about 7,000 years ago in the ancient cities of Eridu and Ur. Unfortunately, the minister did not mention where the Sumerians had such technologies from and why there was no evidence of them. Professor Kamal Aziz Ketuli wrote that during his visit to the Iraqi Museum in Baghdad at the Sumerian wing, he observed 3 Sumerian clay tablets with cuneiform writings and drawings dating back to around 3000 BC. According to him, in one of the tablets, he found heliocentric drawings of the solar system. And additionally, from 3000 BC, Mesopotamians used a calendar with months and years, which indicates that the moon was studied at that early age. Interestingly, in ancient Mesopotamia, all 5 planets visible to the naked eye were known and studied, along with the moon, the sun, the stars, and other celestial phenomena. These planets are Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And this is by House and Wise, Vicky Verma. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.